Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk about Black History Month, the month that is a celebration of my people, because I am a black man and everything. And it's about all our accomplishments, all the oppression that we have gone through over like centuries of living in like America and stuff like that. So I'm here today to talk to you about how some black hairstyles are used in an inappropriate way in Hollywood to distinguish either a villain or like a person of ugliness. Now, here's the thing. Hair is a very important thing to people. Some might think it's not, but some do. Some people say your hair is your crown. Many black people say that. And many people who are going bald wish they had hair. And so the thing about hair is that every race, every custom, every culture, every country has their own unique style. Sometimes hair will represent a certain race, a country, or something or another. Or even sometimes even religion, And people don't really like when their culture is being shown in a very negative light. And, representation always matters. I don't care what anybody says, it does. And so when it comes to hair, Hollywood has a very odd stance when it comes to black hairstyles. We've heard from black celebrities how they're on a show that is predominantly white or a movie, and there's no black hairstylist. And so mostly they have to do their hair themselves, or they have to go to the salon and get it done, or they just do whatever the studio wants or put on a wig. Now, I've heard many black celebrities talk about this. The second black yellow Power Ranger, Nakia Burris, talked about this from Power Ranger Zia. I can't remember this one actress now. I think it's Jazz, or the character Jazz. Anyway, from the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the black actress. She's now on Gen V on Amazon Prime. She's talked about this. Tia Mowry has talked about this. Not Tamara, go figure. And I remember still to this day that Tia Mowry said that, her and her sister have naturally curly hair. Not only are they black, but they're half white. And when it comes to biracial black and white people, their hair is mostly that really good curly hair, those really nice curls and stuff. Like a curly Sue type thing. And what's funny about that hairstyle is that Hollywood seems to think that is the to-go hairstyle for black women when it's a predominantly white show or movie. You've seen that before in modern times right now. Every time it's a predominantly white movie or a white television show and they have that one sole black person in there that happens to be female, her hair is super curly. And, that's really only when it comes to biracial black people, because actual black people got those nappy roots. You know what I'm saying? We gotta put the products in our hair just to make it curly like that. And so Hollywood want people to think, okay, that's the to-go hairstyle for black women, right? And so, but what happened to actual hairstyles that come from other countries that are black and they're used in a negative light? Like, say, dreadlocks or braids or just really, really nappy hair that's kind of bushy. And so, oh, wait, I went off topic. I was talking about curly hair. Okay, so Tia Mowry, she said back in her ABC days when she had sister, that her and her sister have naturally curly hair. And the network made them straighten their hair once they started to get older in the later seasons. The reason for that is they said that they wanted them to match the hairstyles of the other girls on the ABC sitcoms. You know, the white actresses, because ABC is predominantly white, especially back in the day. And Tia did not like this whatsoever. She didn't want to straighten her hair at that time. She wanted her curly hair. As for Tamara, I have no idea. She's never commented. But, you know, if you stay into the drama of Tia and Tamara Mori, then you probably would assume Tamara probably didn't have a problem with that because her hair has been straight ever since. And there's probably a reason for that. It's funny. They say one twin's white, the other is black. Oh boy, I swear. Anyway. But yeah, the network wanted them to please the eyes of white people because the ethnic look was a little too offensive and they were scared that it might turn some of their audience members away. This has normally happened a lot in television to where, like, you know, if it's a predominantly white like show or whatever, they will make you have your hair looking like everybody else. And that's one reason why they don't get black hairstylists. Plus, they just don't want to have to pay the black hairstylist because they could care less about that. But in more modern times, you're starting to see that change. Now, here's the thing about black hairstyles. They have been on television and movies since, like, you know, the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. People just really didn't pay too much attention to it, but they're paying attention to it now because representation matters. So when a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, it's trendy now in Hollywood. No, it's always trended. You just gotta know where to look. If it was like a predominantly black television show or a predominantly black movie, you will mostly see a black hairstyle from like a black country. Sometimes on a predominantly white television show or movie, you will see also a black hairstyle from like another country. Sometimes it will be a recurring character. Sometimes it will be a main, or sometimes it'll just be a background person, stuff like that. But they're there. And normally those characters are just characters, not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. They're just background people. And most of the time, if it's like a black person on a white show, they're mostly a good character. But what happens, and now I'm finally going to get to this point, when you take a black hairstyle and you use it for pure evil. And it starts to become a recurring theme in Hollywood. Now, dreadlocks is mostly what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Braids too, I guess you could say, and also nappy, bushy hair, but mostly dreadlocks, because this is something I noticed growing up in the 90s and stuff. And this trend lasted for about 10 years or so. It happened in like the mid 90s to the early 2000s and stuff. But I remember constantly seeing dreadlocks on villainous characters who weren't even black. They were other races, mostly white. And that's what was very shocking. And I remember seeing it and not really thinking too much about it. Just be like, huh, that white person got dreads. And that's about it. But as I gotten older and more wiser, I'm starting to pick up on certain things. Now, this video is not going to be about, oh, you know, oh, they're stealing our hairstyles, this and that. Like, say, white hipsters. You know, most of them, they have dreads in their hair. And so, you know, they pull off very well. Now, I've said this before also, hair is universal. I really don't care what kind of style you wear your hair. I don't care what race you are. A white person can have braids and dreads just as much as a black person. Although, I don't like seeing braids on white women with like blonde hair and light brown hair. It just doesn't look good. It looks gross. It looks like rope in a really icky kind of way. You need some darkness in the hair. There's something with the texture of their hair and the oil and everything. It just doesn't do well on braids. It does well on dreads, but just not braids. Hispanic and Latino women, they can pull up braids and stuff like that. And women with like dark black hair can also do it as well. It's just those white women with blondish, light brown hair that just look weird. And like I said before, tons of hipsters have like, dreads and stuff like that. So, to me, hair is universal. And people shouldn't get too bent out of shape when another person of another race wears a hairstyle. I mean, black women wear their hair straight, and you don't hear white women saying, oh, they still in our hairstyle. Or when a black woman dyes their hair blonde, which actually looks really good on a lot of black women, you don't hear white women saying, oh, they still in our blonde hairstyle. I mean, who has gone up to Beyonce, who has not had dark hair since she dyed it back in like what, late 90s or something like that? Nobody has gone up to her and been like, hey, why are you still in that white hairstyle? And stuff like that. Now, I do have a problem when another race will adapt a black hairstyle and they pretend like it's theirs, you know what I'm saying? Or a whole group of them would do it and people assume it's theirs. Kind of like rock and roll music. People assume it's white people's music, but it started with black people, but they stole it from us. See, that's when I do have a problem with other races wearing like other people's hair and stuff. Now, will it look weird if, say, like, a white, black, or Hispanic person wears like a traditional Asian hairstyle from like feudal Japan or something like that? Yes, it will. And you can debate on that all you want and stuff. I still think hair is universal. But back to the topic at hand, it's no coincidence that for about 10 years in white Hollywood that you will see dreads on villainous characters that weren't even black. And I'm not saying a villain can't have dreads. They can. Because sometimes it looks really cool and very different. It's only when it constantly happens, then it starts to be a problem and everything. Because as we all know, people love to mock like other people's cultures, and people love to mock black hairstyles. There are many people, especially white people, who will mock black hairstyles. It's their way of showing people, hey, we don't like you and we don't like your culture. There are many white YouTubers who are bigots, who are part of that anti-woke mob, who will occasionally, once in a blue moon, mock a black hairstyle. In fact, just recently last year on Star Wars The Acolyte, Osha May had a very black hairstyle, very reminiscent of Rick James. May he rest in peace. And this one white YouTuber decided, hey, I'm gonna Photoshop her hairstyle on my head for the thumbnail and everything. Now, this man is a very known bigot. And so in society we live in, if people want to mock, say, like a race, instead of actually saying something about that race, they will mock their style, their hair, their clothes, whatever, In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, a lot of women who are black used to wear their hair, for the most part, straight. And so it wasn't really till like the 90s they started wearing their hair curly. Or they'll wear like braids or something like that, or some other type of like style. However, now in modern day Hollywood, they've heard the complaints from like several black celebrities about forcing them to straighten their hair and stuff like that. And so now Hollywood's depiction of black hairstyles primarily seems to be that of the curly hairstyle. You see it everywhere nowadays. And so this is probably like the go-to black hairstyle for most like, black females and stuff, and some black men. And so Hollywood seems to think this is like really the only hairstyle black people can have for the most part. But sometimes they do like change it up to something more like, cool looking and stuff. Like say with the actress from Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, where her hair is braided, but it's in so many different styles, it looks like really cool, However, like, for some reason, Hollywood seems to want people to think dreadlocks are villainous for some reason. And it's kind of like, how come you don't see too many good black characters have dreadlocks, you know? Now, I remember back on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think it was probably like the second season or something like that, Will decided to get a different hairstyle from his flat top. He decided to get like these micro braids looking very similar to that of Coolio. He also changed his appearance to look more like what rappers kind of were dressing like back then, very much kind of like prison look attire. Uncle Phil and Aunt Vivian did not approve of that. Now remember, the Banks family are a black rich family that are depicted as white, and they did not appreciate his new style and everything. I forget the reason why they said they didn't like it. Probably because they was all like, oh, this is too ghetto looking, you look like a gangster, what would the people in our neighborhood think? Something probably like that, you know. And that's how a lot of folks like interpret like hair like that, you know. Now, let's hurry and get these movies out of the way. Still to this day, nobody knows what the heck is on the back of the heads of these aliens. So in the Predator movie, what exactly is it? Is it hair in the form of dreads with beads on it? Is it tentacles, mechanical? Or are they just flesh? You know, and there's never been no definitive answer as to what the heck this is, and people have wondered for decades. Now, the Predators are villains and stuff, and they have dreads. They're a very tribal type race, and they literally stick off on the back of their heads. And there's also similar things on the front of their faces that look like hair follicles and stuff. So why? Why exactly are the villains giving dreadlocks? Trying to indicate that, oh, people who have dreadlocks are what, villainous and stuff, or you should like assume that. Now, still to this day, like I said, there's been no answer. There have been comic books and books written and all this other stuff where the writer has tried to explain, oh, no, 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 this isn't hair, that's not dreadlocks, it's actually flesh, similar to that of the skin of their body. And it's just really meaty, like flesh back there, like tentacles and everything. Then there are others that say, well, it's these mechanical things that hook up and stuff. And it's supposed to be used for like balance and like, you know, sensory notes and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, maybe, or maybe you're just saying that because people have asked, hey, why did you give like these villains a black hairstyle for? And of course, this movie was made back in the old days when people could care less about other folks' races and stuff. The White Witch from the Chronicles of Narnia, the Wardrobe, the Lion, and the Witch. The White Witch in the books is described as having long, dark, either brown or black hair. But in the movie, they decided, hey, let's give her two hairstyles. Her primary hairstyle will be blonde and red dreadlocks, and her secondary hairstyle, when she goes into battle, will be bushy nappy hair. Two very distinct black hairstyles. And this came out in the early 2000s, and it's like, why? Why does she have two black hairstyles as white can be, especially when the books say she's supposed to have long black hair? Or, and it's just kind of like, you know, I get it. It's for like a visual style. It's like appealing. And yeah, she does actually look pretty good with that hairstyles and stuff. But here's the thing about the White Witch. In the Chronicles of Narnia, the lion, Aslan, is supposed to be depicted as God. The White Witch is supposed to be depicted as the devil. So why did they give two black hairstyles to the interpretation of the devil? And this is a white character. Now, I've said before, you can have, like, say, a villain who has dreadlocks, just as long as it doesn't always happen. And depending on who it is, kind of works a little bit better. In fact, going back to the Chronicles of Narnia, remember that epic movie with Jennifer Coolidge? They even parodied her hairstyle, giving her like dreads, but in a more poofier kind of look and everything. And I'm glad they showed that to show that, because they could have just gave her long straight hair, but they wanted the character to look very similar to how she looked in that movie when they parodied that movie. And it's just kind of like, still to this day, why exactly was this villain given a black hairstyle? Then there is the second Matrix movie where you have the two white twins and they just happen to have dreadlocks, very thin ones. And like, it's the thing is like, why? Why did the white villains have to have the dreadlocks for? Yes, I know other villains in the movies and other movies have like normal white people hair too. But it is kind of odd whenever during this time of like the late 90s and early 2000s, this is what you would see with a lot of your white villains. You would have them have like black hairstyles, mostly dreads and stuff. And if you think, oh, it's just being ridiculous and everything. Okay, well, how would you feel if like every black villain in a movie or television show had like long, straight blonde hair? Like, you will start to pick up on that and everything. I forget the voodoo lady's name, but she has dreads. And, I wish Hollywood would stop villainizing voodoo, because Hollywood, aka white Hollywood, wants people to think that voodoo is like some type of evil type witchcraft that, black people have conjured up. And I used to think that too, because that's what Hollywood taught me growing up. Until a few years ago, I watched a Marvel TV show called Cloak and Dagger, and they depicted voodoo as actually being good. I'm like, that's weird. It turns out that voodoo is actually a black religion in many black countries, and it's primarily in that of Louisiana. And I'm just kind of like, man, if only people knew the truth instead of what Hollywood wants you to believe and stuff. And, dreads look good on this like villainous character and stuff. She's black. Her character is evil. It gives her a more distinct type of look. There's also three other black people in the Pirates movie. One had long straight black hair, one was a bald man, and the other man had dreads and stuff. So they had a variation of different hairstyles. Not every black person, especially the villains, had the same hairstyle, even though two of the villains had hairstyles. But she's kind of redeemed herself because she's supposed to be like a misunderstood villain, but hey, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so now this brings me to the biggest culprit of them all that I saw this a lot in. Now let's go on to the main culprit themselves. Something I noticed in the late 90s and mid 90s. That's Hercules, Xena, and Young Hercules, the television show. So I love these shows growing up. Xena was just awesome. You know what I'm saying? And it's actually started all on the Hercules show. But both Xena, Hercules, and Young Hercules are culprits in this. See, in this show universe that's all shared, they let you know straight up who a villain's gonna be. Mostly they wear black leather, And sometimes they look a little bit dirtier, but it's mostly black leather. Like warlords, any type of villain, assassins, they normally wear black leather. They can wear other colorful clothes too, but it's mostly black leather. And another way that most of these villains will be depicted sometimes, I've noticed, that started to become a recurring theme was a lot of these white characters and Mari characters would have dreadlocks. And at first, I didn't think nothing of it, like I said before, because I was just a kid growing up. And it was like, at first, it was just like one or two. But then I started knowing almost every villain, not all the villains now, most of the villains have like white hairstyles. But after a while, a lot of these villains started to have dreadlocks. Now again, it was probably like um something different, something unique, them trying different stuff. But when it started to become a recurring theme, then it has to make you wonder what the heck was the hairstylist thinking. And so on Hercules, there was this one centaur. Now centaurs can go either way, mean, good, it doesn't matter. And centaurs, are half horse, half human. And so what this centaur do, like he starts off good, but then he heard Hercules had killed his brother. And so he wants revenge and he tries to kill Hercules. And it's been an extremely long time since I've seen that episode. And so like here you have a centaur, darkly colored skin, and he has dreadlocks and he's playing a villain. Now, I will admit, yeah, dreadlocks do look good on a centaur, especially when they just have regular long flowing hair, but also like, the dreadlock look and everything. Like it's a good aesthetic for that of like the character. And they look very like tribal and stuff like that. I would be willing to forgive them if they made more of the nicer heroic centaurs have dreadlocks as well, but they don't necessarily do that. They always do it to the angry, more mean ones or the villainous ones. And I do believe this was the first time I've ever seen this on like the Hercules show, because Hercules came out first before the other two. And so then when you get to that of like, say, the rest of the Hercules series and Xena and young Hercules, sometimes with the more villainous centaurs or their offspring that look human, they tend to have dreads, the ones that are more angry, villainous stuff. And I don't like that because they're making a statement. And so like also when it comes to the centaurs on Hercules, I find it doubly racist and stuff because like on the Xena show that came out years later, they would have different races to be centaurs, mostly like white and other races, because in the Hercules show and also the young Hercules show, their depiction of centaurs are always dark-skinned men with either long hair or braid hair or something like that. And it's like the dude you see here, he's Maui. No, not Maui, but Maori. It's like a race, a Polynesian type race, and this dude is not even really this brown. Like if you ever seen him in any other show, he has a tan, yes. It's mostly kind of like reminiscent of like Native American or like a Mexican type tan, brownish kind of color, but the dude's not this brown. They just like put makeup on his face and body and stuff, or made him get like a really dark tan. But trust me, his complexion is nothing like this and stuff. And it really made you feel like they were stereotyping black people when they made their centaurs on the Hercules show. And then you have Xena herself. Now Xena has long, regular white people hair, right? And when she started off on the Hercules show, she also had long hair and she was a villain. Then she became good. Then she went on to her own show where she was good. But of course, they have to have flashbacks of the past when she was evil. And I noticed something every time that they do a flashback with her. When she's evil, she either has nappy, bushy hair or she has dreadlocks and everything. Then I noticed that a lot of people that accompany her, who's part of like her gang, like her boyfriend, her lieutenant, they have dreads as well. And I'm just kind of like, what the heck is going on? So only Xena, when she's villainous, she can have this hairstyle, and so does her men. But when they do a flashback of her when she's good, she has normal looking hair. It's as straight as could be. Then they show that a flashback when she actually turned evil. And then, see, in that whole episode, Her hair was straight when she was good, but then she turned evil, and then her hair went nappy all of a sudden. This is deliberate and everything. Because when Xena was evil, she was nasty. She tried to conquer the entire world. She has killed thousands of people. And, she has just done some of the most disgusting things ever, all with her nappy hair or her dreadlock hair, apparently. And like I said before, this was a recurring thing when it came to Xena's bad guys. Now, to be clear, yes, Xena bad guys had all kind of different hairstyles. Some had long, straight hair. Some had like short hair. And then all of a sudden, I started to notice they started having dreads or nappy hair. And the whole dread look just kept recurring after a good while, which was just odd. But then on Hercules, they did something odd. Now, this is the second Hephaestus. And Hephaestus is a god who is deemed to be an ugly person. He is also the god that creates things, right? And so the original one, because he's supposed to be depicted as ugly, they had a guy who wore like prosthetics to make his face unattractive, and he had short regular hair, right? And so like that Hephaestus, even though he's a god, he's not one of the bad ones, but because of his jealousy, he turns bad and turns against Hercules, his sometimes brother, sometimes cousin, depending on how they write him in the show, right? But he's a good guy, but just in this one episode, he's bad, you know what I'm saying? He's jealous of Hercules and tries to like harm him. Then in his next appearances, he was played by this actor right here. Now, this actor has had two completely different hairstyles playing Hephaestus. They got rid of like the prosthetics on the face to make him ugly, and they made him more dirtier looking, and they gave him dreads. And when they gave him dreads, they changed his character to where he's no longer ugly, but he's kind of one of those type of people you just don't want to be around. He's annoying, he's obnoxious, he burps, he thinks he's funny when he's not. He thinks he's a cool kid, but he's not. And he's just kind of like this dirty, nasty kind of person that the cool kids will make fun of in school. And so now I'm kind of like, oh, okay. So he's not villainous. He's a good guy. But now you're trying to say he's this dorky, unappealing person, and he just happens to have dreads to give him more of that look. So now they're trying to say you're ugly if you have dreads. Then they gave him a spiky hairstyle that was short, and he was no longer that dorky person. Then he was just like a nice ally type person. So he's cool when he has spiky hair, but he's a dork when he has dreads. And we all know why this is happening. Then there is evil Miles Morales from the Spider-Verse movie, and he has these like braids and stuff. And it's kind of like, why did they have to give him braids? Like, they could have gave him a hairstyle similar to that of his uncle, like a low cut, or just a different hairstyle. Like, why, to show him as a villain, they had to give him braids and stuff. I know it's different from his, like, afro, the good version, but still, it's like, why are braids, dreads, and stuff like that always depicted as villainous? And this wouldn't have been a problem if sometimes this doesn't occur all the time in Hollywood. Even in modern times, this is still happening. Like, it happened in The Boys season 4, I believe it is. Like, it's 4 or 5, I can't remember. The one with Sister Sage. See, Sister Sage is not from The Boys comic, which the show is based off of. She's completely original. And so the character is a supervillain who happens to have dreads. And the thing about that is like, in modern times now, Hollywood has ditched like white characters with dreads playing villains. So now they're back to like black characters having it. But here's the thing about like the character. First, I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe the actress hair is like that. No, her hair is normally like a curly afro. So they wanted to give her like a black hairstyle, and surprise, surprise, they gave her dreads, and she just happens to be a villain. This could be just a coincidence, or it just could be Hollywood doing what Hollywood does best. You know what I'm saying? But it's just so odd that once again we have a villain who, and this time happens to be black, and to show that, hey, her hairstyle happened to be dreads. Now, A-Train is black and he does not have dreads. However, in the comic, he is white. So when they race bent him, they made him like, black. And I'm just gonna assume they did not give him dreads only, or braids, only because they would have to CG that in whenever he runs like really fast. And take that of Star Wars The Acolyte. You have May and you have Osha. Both are played by the same actress and are twins. And one goes throughout the series being good until she turns evil at the end, and one is evil throughout the entire series until she turns good at the end. And both have that of braids and stuff. And it's just a weird coincidence that both of them would technically be bad and have this hairstyle. Now, of course, in The Acolyte, it was made in 2024, and they wanted to have a black hairstyle for their black character. And they wanted one to where both characters, if they needed to pretend to be the other person, could change into this hairstyle. But still, once again, why does it have to be like a braided or dreadlock type of hairstyle? They could have had any type of hairstyle for this series, but yet they chose this one. However, there is a rare occasion when people with dreadlocks aren't always the villains in television shows or movies and stuff. Back to that of The Matrix, the operator dude played by Howard, he had dreadlocks and he was good. However, there is a reason. That was his actual hairstyle at that time. It's not like, the hair people decided to give him that hairstyle. However, another rare occasion where there's a good guy who has dreads is the wizard from the Shazam movies and everything. His character had dreadlocks and everything, and he was a good character. He was a bit rude, but for the most part, yeah, he was an actual good character. A character who was barely in both movies and stuff. But yeah, at least, they decided, this was like in the 2020s, you know what I'm saying? So they was learning a little bit here and there not to do that, but still the dude was barely in the movie. So they're kind of like, whatever, let's just make him good and get him that good hairstyle. But it's weird because, like I said before, in so many projects, like Hollywood loves giving dreadlocks to villains and stuff. And the only times you normally don't see that is when the actor has it themselves. And still, in my opinion, it harkens back to that of Fresh Prince when Will changed his hairstyle and his uncle and aunt felt it was inappropriate and stuff. That kind of, to me, just signal that the writers was kind of like, hey, see, look, this hairstyle is associated with bad people and everything, especially the way Will is now dressing and stuff, trying to indicate that this hairstyle is villainous and stuff. When people look at people with dreads, which is normally black people, they tend to look down on them. They think they're dirty. They think they're disgusting. They think they smoke weed. They think like, they're unintelligent, or they think they're gangsters or something like that, or they're going to rough them up in the street. So for Hollywood's thinking, they're kind of like, we need some bad guys. We need a bad guy hairstyle. Hey, I know what we can do. We can give them this black hairstyle, since people don't tend to like black people that much and they kind of fear black people. That would be great. So let's give these villainous characters a black hairstyle, because in their mind they're going to interpret this as villainous anyway, so they might as well just portray it in their show. And it's really disgusting because I truly believe that is what Hollywood is thinking. Because it's no coincidence that all of these characters who happen to be villainous or deemed ugly and unattractive happens to have dreadlocks or nappy rooted hair. Because people think of black people as disgusting and stuff. White people literally call black people gorillas, monkeys, all kinds of stuff. And they do it because they find us unattractive and they want the whole world to find us unattractive. When I say them, I mean like the ones from like the past. And even some of them still today, because let's not forget about Leslie Jones and what happened to her when she was in that Ghostbusters movie and somebody called her a gorilla online and everything. So it's like, it's the racist ones that think this stuff. So it's Hollywood's way of trying to say, hey, y'all already think they're bad. Let's just show it in our show. Or, you know, you think they're disgusting, so let's just show it in our show. Because that's their way of thinking. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when they want to show somebody who's very beautiful, very intelligent, very popular, it tends to be like a blonde person? A blonde person with long locks and everything. And when they want somebody who's like intelligent, a little bit more stern, or just a little bit dorky, they have brunette hair. Or if it's somebody unattractive and somebody who just gets made fun of, they have red hair. Like, have you ever noticed that? So it is, I truly believe it is no coincidence that they gave these villains, these white villains in TV shows and movies, black hairstyles. Because they look at us as villains and stuff. When they see us, they cross the street. You know, it happens. When we pass by their car, say like in a parking lot, and they're sitting in their car, all of a sudden they lock their car right then and there. They didn't lock it before, but they're going to do it whenever like a black person walks by. And yes, I have had that happen to me before. Plenty of times. But in black cinema, when we have a black villain, we don't go around dyeing their hair blonde. We don't try to make it look as white as possible. You know what I'm saying? And if you think I'm being over ridiculous and everything, well, let's paint this picture, right? Let's say you have a movie, and I don't care what the race is. Maybe it's predominantly white, maybe it's predominantly black, or maybe it's predominantly Hispanic. And all of your villains just so happen to have that old ancient 1800s Chinese hairstyle for men, where their hair is completely bald, but then they have that long ponytail in the back. Now say you see a bunch of white people or black people or Hispanic people who happen to be villains who have that hairstyle, it's gonna come off as racist. Ha! I said I just went over your head with logic. Happy Black History Month, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.